I'm Jivin Johnny Etheredge with you on 91.9 KRVM. I'm on the phone here with J.P. Sears, an internet comedian, because you've had a gazillion views of certain YouTube videos. Before you were an internet comedian and now doing live comedy appearances, you were a life coach specializing in emotional healing. Now, coming from a comedian, I wonder, am I supposed to take that as a joke or take that seriously?
You're a wise man for even asking that question. And yeah, it's true, as ridiculous as it sounds, because I think most of the time we think of comedians as the ones who need the most emotional healing. So what business would this redheaded guy named JP have doing emotional healing work? Well, I got into it because when I was 20 years old, I realized, man, I'm as wounded as everyone else who's inflicted with the human condition. So I got into the life coaching and did that exclusively for about a decade and a half. And then eventually let my sense of humor come out as a way of sharing messages through the language of humor. And I've been very blessed to have the decade and a half of working with people, learning about the human heart and myself and other people, really become the basis for what I do my live comedy and many of my comedy videos on.
Well, tell me, the comedy thing almost took off by itself without you were really planning it that way, didn't it?
I am not smart enough to plan how it's turned out. It's just been a delightful accident, Johnny. You're 100% right. I remember back in late 2014 when I was putting out my first comedy video, I thought it was just going to be a one-time video that nobody would watch. I would feel embarrassed. It wouldn't be funny. And it took off pretty well, that first one. But the more important thing is I felt this creative satisfaction for the first time in my life where it's like, all right, I was funny with a purpose. So I just said to myself, I was so amused in that whole process. I really don't care if anyone watches this video. Turns out, luckily, they did. But I just developed an appetite for, I want to say more of what I have to say through comedy. This feels darn good to me.
Well, let me ask you this. With videos along the lines of how to become gluten intolerant, or if meat eaters acted like vegans, or Portland, Everything You Need to Know, which does a great job of lampooning Oregonians, is anybody ever really seriously offended? Do you hear from very upset vegans? Do you hear from very upset Portland residents?
Well, I've definitely heard from upset vegans. So, yeah, I think most videos do offend I'm actually shocked, a very small percentage of people. And with the vegan video, that's probably been the most offensive one. And I remember shortly after that came out, I did an interview with the BBC, and they tried to, they were not about human connection. They just wanted to get me into a corner, create drama, makes for good, crappy news. So they brought on and said, well, JP, we just went down to the local vegan restaurant, showed your video to a waitress who's vegan, and she felt offended. What do you have to say about that? And I said, well, I'd never want to rob someone from the emotions that their body generates. So, it's never my intention to offend. It's always my intention to slice through the psychological scar tissue of the dogmas that so many of us carry. And I do that through the sword of satire with my humor, because ultimately I want people to get in touch with a deeper truth that they carry. And I realize sometimes that means we'll be offended. But I haven't heard any Portland people or Oregonians be offended yet. So we've got room to work with these folks.
Well, when it comes to making fun of us, we're kind of used to it. So
you kind of do it yourself, don't you?
Yeah. Yes, we do. You have written a book called How to Be Ultra Spiritual, 12 and a half steps for spiritual superiority, which, being the lazy guy I am, I have not read. And I think to myself, 12 and a half steps, couldn't you give me like one step or two that would get me to a position of spiritual superiority?
Oh, absolutely. looking the part as meditation is 100%. I mean, it's at least 14 out of the 12 and a half steps. So we all know that posting meditation selfies on Instagram is the key to getting the benefits of meditation. It's hard to take a selfie while you're meditating, which kind of means you got to devote more attention to the selfie than the actual meditation. But if you look the part, then you're 100% of the way there. And, you know, I think a wise man once said, the key to being spiritual is looking spiritual. That man was J.P. Sears.
I understand that tight yoga pants are a part of this program to spiritual superiority, and I'm a fellow that's never worn a pair of yoga pants, tight or loose. Does that mean I'm doomed to spiritual inferiority?
Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, unless you're dressed to get essentially a nudity ticket because your pants are so tight, I don't know how you could possibly be doing yoga. Johnny, I'm going to get you a size small women's yoga pants. And I want you to send me a picture. And I'm going to post it online. So that's going to be your civic duty.
Wow, I can tell from the way this conversation is going that you've never actually laid eyes on me. Okay. Now, I understand that coming from your background as a life coach, you still participate in that field of endeavor, although to a lesser extent than you did before your comedy career took off. You know, for like a couple of $100 an hour, I could Skype with you and you could straighten my life out for me.
It's been a couple of years as the comedy world has opened up a lot of great opportunities that have been very purposeful for me. I've had to give up the one-on-one life coaching, but yeah, I've had to surrender the one-on-one practice. That was not able to handle that kind of schedule.
Was there a point where you found that in the one-on-one practice that people were coming to you not because they expected you to be truly helpful, but they simply expected you to be truly funny? Yeah,
you know, I love that question. When I jump on a session with a person and, you know, I'm showing up, I want to give them my heart and soul and, like, let's make a difference in your life here for this hour. A lot of people were saying, like, hey, I just wanted to talk to you and meet you. I'm a big fan of your work. And, well, I'm always grateful to meet people and connect with people who appreciate my work. I was finding, you know, some of the people showing up, their heart wasn't into the let's do some deep dive coaching.
All right. Well, I want to remind my listeners that in addition to following you on Facebook or subscribing to your YouTube channel, and that is, of course, J.P. Sears, you were on your way to our town. You were going to be at the Hult Center on Sunday, May 5th, in spite of having publicly made fun of, well, at least Portlanders. Heck, I see that before you come to Eugene, you go into Portland for a couple of nights. So good luck there after posting that video. And
Thank you.
Folks interested in additional information on the show, tickets, information available online for J.P. Sears at hultcenter.org. And, J.P., I want to thank you for taking a few minutes here to shoot the breeze with me. It's been a pleasant experience. I'm looking forward to Sunday the 5th.
Johnny, yeah, thank you so much for having me on, my friend, and I'm looking forward to being in Eugene with all you weirdos on the 5th.